So we are 3 races into this 2026 Formula One season, and the competition right now is looking pretty spicy. Well, I mean, not really, since it's just Merc winning, but it's not the same car. George Russell dominated the first race and seemed to be in for a clean George Russell sweep to his first title. And while that could still very much happen, there is a factor that is currently upsetting this notion: Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli is a name I'm sure we have heard of for a long time, but to quickly recap, Toto Wolff jerking himself off at the thought of having a Max Verstappen level driver lost Max Verstappen to Red Bull, who swooped in early for him, and mad he needed to compensate for the loss. So in 2019, he picks up this little 13-year-old boy named Kimi Antonelli to the Mercedes Junior Academy, who, keep in mind, do not sign just any driver. They're responsible for bringing George Russell to the sport, who of course is good, but also have brought in guys like Pascal Wehrlein, who didn't have the most notorious of careers, mainly due to Sauber, but excels in other forms of racing. They also brought in Ocon to the sport, who, yes, is very stagnant nowadays, but in his junior days, bro was a literal demon. Mercedes seldom sign drivers to their academy, and when they do, they are very confident in their abilities. So the signing of Kimi Antonelli was being met with eyes immediately. And then the world ended in 2020 before coming back in 2021, and when Kimi moved to cars later that year, he just understood it. For the last 3 rounds in the Italian F4 series, he stood on the podium in every single one of them, and in the F4 UAE Championship, he finished 3rd to cap off a short but brilliant 2021 season. But then 2022 and 2023, brother, he was just winning. In 2022, he finishes 8th in the F4 UAE Championship, but in every other series he competed in from 2022 all the way to every championship he partook in 2023, he won them all. Title after title after title. He even took part in a GT3 race in 2023 and won. Like, this kid is crazy. So Toto, seeing this brilliance, is like, fuck F3, man. You're going straight to F2 from these low-level Freca cars, and let's see if he could truly impress. And he did. However, not without some problems. Kimi was mostly fine, however, did struggle at first adapting to the sudden jump of performance, but Prema was literally collapsing during this time and failed to deliver Kimi or Ollie Behrman, his teammate, a car that worked. So most of the time, they were stuck in midfield hell with a car that was a pubic hair away from breaking, while everyone else, had a competent team. Despite this, Kimi finished in 6th in the standings, and Toto, seeing this, probably wanted Kimi to stay in F2 for 2025. But Lewis Hamilton decided to turn coat at Mercedes, and with Toto needing a driver, said fuck you to Ocon and signed Kimi Antonelli straight to a top team. I'm sure you could guess how 2025 went, but instead of Toto abandoning Kimi and saying he needs to do better, he helped Kimi. He told him, fuck the media, man, you're him. And Kimi, in the last half of 2025, matched or even exceeded George Russell's pace at time. And now in 2026, Kimi not only won his very first race, but won again directly afterwards and sees himself top of the standings currently. Kimi, all throughout his career, has demonstrated monster pace and racecraft, and now that he has started to unlock his traits in F1 cars, it is not only disrupting George Russell's success, but could lead to Kimi getting the title first. But could it though? This is Kimi's sophomore season, and there are just so many unknowns if he can win the title or if he is a champion level driver. And you know what? What even is a champion level driver? Does that term even have weight to it? Well, let's find out for ourselves and see if this term exists and if Kimi is ready for the title this year. Subscribe here and new if you love history, and let's get to quacking now.
A good weather for a race, but especially for a talk.
Let's revisit something I said before. If he is a champion level driver, what the fuck does that mean? Because by a technicality, every driver wants to win the world championship, and thus are champion level drivers. I mean, these guys ain't scrubs. They all had brilliant junior careers that saw them deservedly get an F1 seat, with the exception of Lance Stroll, of course. So what makes these good drivers more good that they are classified as champion level driver? Well, a good place to start is probably by looking at past and current F1 champions and how or why they won their title. Of course, there is Max Verstappen. Max is the most recent dominant champion we have had, since his back-to-back titles from 2021 to 24 were no slouches. If there is something Max excels at, it's fighting tooth and nail. And while he does go overboard, not even sometimes, but like every time, it is undeniable that it wins him results and boosts his stocks even further. I would say Max is defined by his ability to just run away in the distance when the car and conditions allow it, along with a super aggressive driving style. well. Another champion to mention is arguable GOAT Lewis Hamilton. 7 titles does not come easily, guys. Lewis has always been defined by his ability to just have nothing go wrong. Whether that's because of luck or skill will always be debated, but it is undeniable that he has such a great ability to manage everything at once and just win. Is he having tire troubles? He wins. Is he having engine troubles? He wins. Is he having strategy troubles? He wins. He claws himself back from any situation, and it's no wonder why he is so successful. Vettel is another driver to mention since, like Max, 4 titles at Red Bull is no easy feat. Seb has always been this aggressive driver with brilliant overtakes along with some decent pace. Those 4 titles he won had to be won under difficult circumstances that most drivers would not have been able to accomplish. And finally, Michael Schumacher, another 7-time world champion. He of course can be defined by being aggressive and a managing machine. Okay, so a champion level driver is defined by their ability to be ultra fast, ultra consistent, and ultra reliable then? Yeah, basically, but there is an issue with this that perhaps some of you may have already spotted. This is like 80% of drivers that have ever competed in the sport. I say only 80, and perhaps that number is still too low since we do have our Lance Strolls here and there, but even to give him credit, Lance Stroll is still way more talented than some of the guys in the past just a decade and a half ago who were also shit and rich. Basically, my point is, most drivers who have competed in F1 and motorsport in general got there because they are talented. Unfortunately though, not every talented driver can win a world championship. Time is very short in the sport since in most sports, athletes are washed by the time they are 36 or 37 and retirement is just a short distance away. And considering most of these guys got their start in their early 20s and need time to find their stride in the sport, most athletes maybe only have 8 to 12 years where they could win a title. So why don't they? Well, in my opinion, what defines a champion level driver or athlete in general is circumstance. Are their team really good? Do they have a supportive crew behind them? Are they given resources at their team that other teams simply do not have? The team in most sports, and certainly F1, are the reason why drivers can win their title since only they can allow the drivers to fully unlock and unleash their talent. Of course, there's still a skill gap between certain drivers, like I'm now over here preaching how Lewis Hamilton and Alex Albon are actually the same level skill-wise, or give Lewis's career and he too will be a 7-time champion. But what I'm saying is, give most drivers the right factors like a great competent team and a fast car, and they too can very well become champion. Look at Lando Norris. Lando isn't this Verstappen, Hamilton, or Schumacher level driver, but he doesn't need to be. He just needs to be good, which of course he is. He's not at McLaren for nothing, and have a good car and team, and boom, the title is won. However, this doesn't mean titles are devalued or the simple thing that can be won by anyone, since there is something I left out in what truly makes a champion level driver, something that a driver can actually control and mostly by themselves. Pressure. This is where the bulk of driver talent comes from when winning one of these things, since everyone here is good and capable of being champion, but can they withstand the pressure and everyone's eyes seeing them at the top? Factor in how many rookies nowadays are starting really young, like a certain Kimi Antonelli, and this right here is still what makes these titles super valuable. I don't doubt you can win the title, you're here for a reason, but can you handle the pressure and the grueling long year of constant and consistent performances needed to win a title? In the case of some, yes. In the case of others, I wish I could say the same. In Formula 1 history, most drivers that win their first or only title in the case of most usually won their titles years into their careers. I mean, Max Verstappen won his first title 7 seasons in. However, some champions have won their titles very early in their career and at such a young age too. So let's see how they won it and if it's really down to their ability to handle pressure well. Let's of course begin with Seb Vettel, the youngest world champion ever at 23 years of age. In 2010, Seb was seen as Red Bull's #1 driver, with veteran driver Webber being the #2 and ready to help whenever he can. Yeah, that shit did not fucking happen. They fought that season, and Webber, being old but still very good, went into the final round of the season ahead of Seb in the standings and more poised to take the title from Alonso. And even though Seb did qualify on pole and Webber in 5th, he just needs to beat Fernando, the title leader, so he could become world champion. So race starts and no DRS and dirty air cars. Oh yeah, we saw 0 overtakes. So after an early safety car saw midfield guys like Petrov of all people in 6th, Webber and Alonso, who pitted later in that race, were stuck behind him while Seb cruised home in 1st to become world champion in a massive upset. And yes, an upset, since many felt Vettel didn't deserve the title, and honestly, I couldn't blame them for thinking that. Seb was very brilliant, don't get me wrong, especially for a guy racing in his 3rd full season, but he did commit a lot of mistakes that were avoidable trouble such as needless crashes and penalties. This did not stop Seth from running away when he could though, since in the latter half of 2010, he went on a tear to ensure he could still win the title should the stars align, and align they did. Another young champion was of course Lewis Hamilton in 2008 in his second ever season, also at 23 years old. The season initially started really good for Ferrari with Kimi Raikkonen taking victories and Felipe Massa picking up what he could. Lewis of course is still very good, even winning the first race, but it seemed to be more Ferrari wins for the season. However, once the midseason hit and after a potential scandal involving Felipe Massa's sponsor Santander and Kimi Raikkonen, Kimi's form dipped while Massa continued his performances. Only issue was, with Kimi out of the picture, Lewis now has more opportunity to win, and even though he is fighting Massa, Lewis was holding his own, not without some rookie mistakes here and there though. And as we go into the final round with Massa and Hamilton dueling for the title, Massa wins the race, but Lewis wins the title in a moment that is bordering on winter slop. So how did he do it? Well, if you want my opinion, because Kimi Raikkonen was compromised by Ferrari and he couldn't win anymore, but objectively, Lewis just dealt with the bullshit. He didn't let his bad performances here and there define him. He would just do better next time, which he did. Now, if prime Lewis Hamilton was going against Massa this season, it wouldn't have been a contest, but sophomore Lewis was still very good enough to beat him, which says a lot about Lewis's ability as a driver mentally and physically. Moving on though, we have the young almost champions who didn't quite do it, and we of course start with Oscar Piastri in 2025. Quick disclaimer, this is not me saying Oscar Piastri will never win a title ever again. This is just me saying how he fumbled it in 2025. I don't doubt he could win it, trust me. Oscar started the year off brilliantly, just win after win after win, all in his third season ever. I mean, you couldn't tell this guy was brand new. He was driving like a decade-old veteran. The way he could just overtake or not do a single mistake, it was Hamilton-esque. However, the summer break happens and ironically, his form broke. He won the return race in Zandvoort, but didn't win again the entire season or even stand on the podium consistently. All summer break, people were talking about how wonderful Piastri being champion will be and why he was so good. Perhaps Oscar let the pressure get to him as he was trying to drive as if he were champion already, since that rhetoric was probably all up in his mind. Oscar just fell off while his two competitors kept doing what they were doing, resulting in Oscar not being runner-up, but third in the standings. And ironically enough, Lewis Hamilton can also fit here, since despite winning the title in his second ever season, he could have won in his first ever season, but of course failed to do so. And this one stings because it was very possible, but just didn't happen. In the first 8 races, Lewis was on the podium in all of them, and naturally looks heavily favored to win the title. I mean, the team was on his side, momentum on his side, it seemed inevitable. However, the team started to implode since Alonso, his teammate, surprise, didn't like the favoritism, so as they fought, Kimi Raikkonen would just pick up their pieces subtly for his chances. However, Lewis was just too good, and as we headed into China, Lewis could wrap up the title with the race to go. Well, he could have. When it came time to pit, Lewis was on old tires and went wide on pit entry and got stuck in the gravel, forcing him to retire, while Kimi won that race with Alonso second. But it's not all doom and gloom. He could still win it in Brazil. However, his engine would have issues and Alonso would fail to beat Kimi, all leading to Raikkonen's surprise 2007 title. I think this one is simple. Pressure. Because also, McLaren were having legal troubles with Spygate around this time, which is a whole other story. So, add on that with Lewis being faced with the immense pressure of being the first rookie champion, it's no wonder why he made crucial mistakes in the latter half of the year. So where does Kimi fall into? The young champions who could, or the ones who couldn't? Well, seeing how the young champions who won had the team on their side and had time to let out all their mistakes after being at the top previously, compared to the ones who couldn't, who failed because it was their first time at the top along with the pressure, I would still say it's tricky regarding Kimi. Because on one hand, Kimi faced mountains of pressure in 2025 and he made it through a better driver. On the other hand, pressure being at the top and near the top are different. Kimi was not winning races or even getting on the podium consistently in 2025. He was just driving a Mercedes car. So I have absolutely zero doubt there will be mountains of pressure on him now this year with him winning races. The only question is, would he be able to resist it more? Because George Russell, keep in mind, went through his pressure phase, and sure, he has never been in this position before either, but he has way more experience on his side, and as we saw with Lando and Oscar, it will help him. When it comes to talent, I have no doubt doubt Kimi would absolutely win the title this year and be a champion level driver. When it comes to his ability to handle pressure, however, he is more equipped to deal with it than Oscar, I would say, but will it be enough? My instincts are telling me unfortunately no, and he will eventually succumb to it, but I also have zero doubt that in a later year, he would be able to do it, since when Kimi is down, he does not stay there for long. He just needs to get used to the winning feeling and pressure, along with being able to fight with other winners, and once he gathers that experience, I do believe he will be capable. But even then, Kimi is one talented dude that I wouldn't be surprised if somehow he does go all the way this year. Either way, Kimi is so young that as long as Mercedes stay this good, I think he will eventually become the new youngest world champion ever. I believe in Kimi Antonelli. Mostly. Anyways, those are my thoughts on this discussion. Kimi was the first driver I would say I actively watched from the first series all the way to now. I have always been impressed by him, and I just want the best for my boy. Maybe I'm a pessimist saying he won't win the title this year realistically, but regardless, he will still have an amazing year. I love you, man. Anyways, I want to give a quick shout out to all members of the vlog for the continued support, and make sure to join if you want cool benefits as well as just helping me out. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you have a like and subscribe since it really helps me out, and make sure to let me know in the comments what you think of this. And as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.